Hello, welcome to Hawkeye Nation. This is HawkCast, your Iowa football, basketball, and recruiting podcast brought to you by Hawkeye Beacon and Rivals.com. I am your lead analyst and host, Eliot Clough, at Eliot Clough on Twitter, joined by Ross Binder for now. We're hoping Adam Jacoby's able to hop in. But before we get started, make sure that you hit that subscribe button on YouTube. Drop a like, drop a comment, drop your final score predictions for this matchup with Iowa and Nebraska on Black Friday in Kinnick Stadium. And of course, if you're listening on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, make sure you subscribe because you might be listening but not subscribed. That way, you get every single episode you're able to listen to. Also, before we get into it, apologies if I sound like crap. I kind of feel like crap. So got a cough drop in the mouth right now and trying to push through Thanksgiving and eventually the Nebraska game on Friday. So appreciate you listening to my stuffed uppiness and and all that. But before we get to
Tis
go
tis the
ahead, Ross.
season, as they say.
Yeah,
Tis the season, unfortunately.
yeah, it is. But before we get to football. Just wanted to go over basketball game last night. Ross, I know you and I were both watching it. That 110 to 77 victory over USC-Upstate in Carver Hawkeye Arena. There's not a ton to take away from these types of wins. You know, as much as
Right.
one, I was,
Double, they say double figures for Riley Mulvey. I mean,
yeah, career
that,
highs, baby. Uh,
that's your takeaway.
Yeah. You know, if there was a time to be sick and to miss a game and have to cover from home, it was against USC Upstate. So, given those circumstances, grateful for that it turned out the way it did. But there, like I said, only so much you can take away from a 33-point victory over the number 342 team in Ken Palm.
I think, yeah, for sure. I mean, that game started and Iowa was up, what, like 16-0, I think, to start the game. Like it was over by the first media timeout effectively. Like Owen Freeman, I think he wound up with like 17, 19 points. I swear, the way he looked at the start of that game, he could have had 40 points easily in that game. Like he was doing whatever he wanted, whenever he wanted. Like that was just domination. My biggest takeaway from that game is that we're like what 3 weeks into the season, maybe about a month, and this team is already like kind of banged up in a lot of ways. We're going to talk about the Traore in a second, but he got hurt in the game. Cooper was out, and who else was out?
Evan Bronze.
Evan Bronze was out, and I mean Peyton has been playing through this wrist injury. As an aside, I wish he wouldn't have played last night. They did not need him at all against Upstate. He did not look good when he was shooting the. He's struggling to convert layups right now, which is not good. Like this is a team that needs a break, needs to heal up. So yeah, the health is my big takeaway from that game because it's a little concerning right now.
It's got to be the main takeaway. I don't think Peyton should have played against Ryder. The way he played against Utah State probably didn't have to play. This week off is probably going to be nice for him, but he hasn't been practicing either. This is just I don't know exactly what the injury is. He said something about ligaments, but he also said he can't do much in life right now on top of basketball. So I don't know if it's just well, he's the leader, right? Like this is his team. I don't know if it's him feeling the need to be a leadership presence for the team despite the injury. I don't know if it's a thing he thinks he has to play through. One of those where either play through it or you get surgery kind of thing. Like I don't know what it looks like for Peyton, but at this point in time, I mean, what seems to make sense would be for him to sit out. But I mean, again, they got a week until playing against Northwestern, so we'll see how it all shakes out. But again, not a great night from Peyton last night. 2 of 7 from the field in 22 minutes with just 6 points. But other than that, I mean, Iowa did really spread the wealth scoring wise. Riley Mulvey, like we said, double digits. Owen Freeman with 17. Drew Thelwell with 15. Josh Dix with 14, and then Brock Harding set another career high last night too with 20, 9 of 13 from the field.
I was going to say that's probably my other takeaway is that Brock Harding has really been good the last couple games. He was the bright spot against Utah State. He played really well, I thought, in that game, and he carried it over to this one. Obviously, competition caveats apply and everything, but a double double, 20 points, 10 assists, right? Is that what he had
Yep.
um, last night? Like he looks really good. Like he's getting into the flow of the offense. The outside shot is falling, which is huge. He's been a really good 3-point shooter for Iowa this year, which honestly this team needs because obviously Peyton's shot is just trash right now, unfortunately. And Price and Dix have been good, but if Harding can hit from deep, that's great. His passing has been excellent. Obviously he's got the great connection with Freeman, but he's not just dishing out to Freeman. So yeah, I've been really impressed with him the last 2 games.
Luckily, Josh Dix looked better last night too. He's got a bit of a wrist thing going on, but I think he hit his first couple shots, and like I said, I think he finished with 14. But to revert back to the injury situation, no idea how long Sadew's going to be out. I mean, well, not no idea. We have a rough idea. Um, with ankle sprains, anybody that's dealt with an ankle sprain in basketball, it's just one of those things where when you start to feel better, you start to feel better. You can't necessarily tell if it's going to be a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. So. Um, yeah, for Iowa, hoping that he is back sooner rather than later. With Northwestern Michigan and Iowa State coming up their next 3 games, especially Iowa State. And Cooper Koch missing last night. One certain player spilled the beans a little bit on the post game radio show, but the team wanted out that they're not sure how long he's going to be out. We do have a little bit of intel on that on iowa.rivals.com for our premium subscribers. So check that out if you're not a subscriber yet. Big deal coming up here soon too for our Black Friday, so Cyber Monday or whatever it is now.
Yeah,
um,
check our social outlets, check our personal feeds, check everything. We're gonna have a huge Black Friday, Cyber Monday deal. So if you're not a subscriber, this is a great time to sign up.
You know what, Ross? I've already received a couple messages saying people are leaving other sites and they want to join us. So if you're one of those people, we got that subscription coming up, that deal. So, and that'll be everywhere from us.
Yep, we love to hear it.
Yeah. So happy to have you if you're one of those people. Again, if yeah, join us when that subscription goes up because we'd love to have you. So Hawkeyes taking on Nebraska on Black Friday. It is an unofficial blackout from the Hawkeyes, even though Hawkeye at Football Notes released it was like a one of those things that Iowa does for the black and gold games where they go black, gold, but it was just all black. So it's kind of funny. And the Hawkeyes will be wearing all black for their own uniforms as well. But of course, the Hawkeyes taking on the Huskers in Kinnick Stadium on Friday for Black Friday. Um, this is an interesting one. Like a lot of Iowa's games have been interesting in that middle of the Big Ten is just whack. The difference with this Nebraska team is that they looked like a top 25 team. They were a top 25 team for a little while to start the season, and then they lost 4 of 5, and they got absolutely throttled by Indiana, which, I mean, you can't blame them for how good Indiana's been this year. But they are bowling, unfortunately. As somebody who covers Iowa and is supposed to be an unbiased journalist, and being from Iowa, I will always hate Nebraska, and I'm not going to apologize for it. But yeah, it's just been a weird season for them, right, Ross?
Definitely, yeah. They're definitely better than they've been the last couple of years. I mean, that's obvious. Like you said, they're finally bowl eligible again. First time since 2016, they've had at least 6 wins in a season. But definitely some up and down results. They believe they were on a 4-game losing streak until they turned it around and beat Wisconsin last week. That got them that 6th win. But yeah, just kind of not some super weird losses. I mean, they haven't just because the middle of that the middle of the Big Ten, like you said, is really kind of mixed up. So like anybody losing to anybody isn't like that surprising. It's not like they've been losing to Purdue or anything. So yeah, it's a little bit of a tough team to get a read on, and even like in their statistics, like they're extremely middle of the conference in of a number of their team stats like scoring, defense, pass offense, rush offense, etc. This is not a team that's really like stand out, which makes sense, right? They're 6-5. They're not a standout team. But that said, they are improved and a good enough team to certainly make Iowa work on Friday night. You're going to need to see Iowa play a good clean performance if they want to get that eighth win this year.
The other thing in that same vein is shockingly, Nebraska has lost a lot of one score games this season. They lost 24-30 or 31-24 to Illinois. And there's those four losses that they had in a row. 21-17 to Ohio State, okay. 27-20 to UCLA, also a team that Iowa lost to. 28-20 to USC. So this is probably going to be a dogfight, just like it was last year. I mean, if I had to guess, that's usually what happens when Iowa plays teams that they're bitter rivals with, right?
Yeah, a lot of these Iowa Nebraska games in recent years, like even when Nebraska hasn't been especially good, like the Iowa games have still been close. Like, I mean, last year it goes down to it's overtime game, right? Or no, it wasn't an overtime game because Iowa got the late interception and the field goal to win it to avoid overtime, I think.
Yeah.
But Iowa's had a couple walk-off kicks to win games in recent years. So yeah, this is just one of those games, one of those series where it's a battle. It's ugly, it's tight. It comes down to the last few plays, and a lot of times it comes down to which team makes the most mistakes or which team makes the last mistake, maybe.
Yeah, definitely. That's how it was last year. I think Deacon threw a pick, and then
Yeah,
Nebraska threw a pick. Ethan Hurkett got that
yeah,
interception. Le'Shawn Williams runs it. It was like maybe they get into field goal range, and then Le'Shawn Williams runs it like 20 yards. Which, by the way, he committed to Memphis out of the portal yesterday. But Le'Shawn Williams runs it 25, 30 yards, and then this is another scenario where interacted with a fan, and I got my headline for the post game article, and it was meter by a meter. Marshall Meter came in, the walk on kicker from Central Michigan, and hit that field goal, however long it was, 30 something yards, and that was when Drew Stevens was really struggling too. So
yeah,
that kind of encapsulates Iowa's season is suck for 55 minutes and then pull it out right there at the end. But yeah, to can flip it to this year, it is a night game, 6:30 kick, I think, in Kinnick,
yep,
and
yep.
it's gonna be cold as hell. It's a high of 25 on Friday, so it's probably
Oof,
gonna be getting close to single digits there in Kinnick Stadium.
burr.
Yeah, but on the bright side for Iowa, Jackson Stratton said the coldest game he's ever been a part of, it was -14 at Air Force when he was
Wow,
in the state. Yeah, so
wow.
California boy, he's experienced a little bit of cold. Um, but at the same time, I mean, these Nebraska and Iowa rosters have too. This is going to be football weather.
Yeah,
I guess how much do you think that impacts the game, Ross?
the cold weather.
Yeah.
I tend to think that cold doesn't affect it, nearly as much as like precipitation or wind. That those I think can really play havoc with things with cold, especially like a game with. I think cold would have a bigger impact if Iowa was playing, if UCLA was visiting Kinnick this Friday and they've got a roster full of California guys that have not, experienced those kinds of temperatures on a regular basis. Then it's something where it could be a factor. But, these rosters, I think, are full of guys from around the Midwest that have been playing in this type of weather for years at this point, going back to their high school days and everything. So I think they're probably pretty accustomed to it. They know what to do. They know how to adjust. So I don't see the cold being a big impact on the game itself. If you're going to the game, pack an extra blanket, bring your good coat.
hmm Yeah, I remember going to a Kansas City Chiefs game with my dad when I was 11 and wearing like long johns under my clothes. This is one of those games.
Oh yeah, yeah,
So definitely do that, especially if you're bringing the kids, drink water, all that stuff. But This, I mean, not only is it a big game in terms of a rivalry game, lots of really big visitors going to be there this weekend. We're going to have the rundown of that for our premium subscribers here. Should be tomorrow. So that's another great opportunity to sign up for our big promo going on. So once that's posted, I'll include that link to sign up. So if you want to check out who will be on campus, we will have that, and it'll be a really good deal. So. Going into this game, Ross, I don't know what the line is. Let me look at ESPN quickly. I think Iowa's favored, if I'm remembering correctly.
They are. I think it's Iowa by five and a half, actually.
Yeah, it opened as 5 and then went to 5.5. The over under is 39.5. So it's going to be a low scoring game. Also something we got to talk about that I wrote about yesterday is apparently Brennan Sullivan and Cade McNamara are both practicing. Had some conversations with some people, and honestly, when Kirk said that Cade was practicing, I didn't believe him. I thought it was one of those Kirk situations. And turns out he is. So again, that was information that I shared with premium subscribers yesterday. But there's
I
no
mean,
way Cade plays, right? Like that's what I wanted to really talk about here. And I think if he or Sullivan do see the field, it'll be a situation where Stratton gets hurt. Just because of long-term health stuff right now.
I would agree with that. I would say it's also, you feel a little bit better about the quarterback situation hearing those guys are practicing at least because, going into that Maryland game, the number two quarterback was Marco Linez he's rocking a big cast or club basically on his right hand. Like that is not what you want to see out of a quarterback. So just the fact that Sullivan and McNamara are able to practice, I think, is a really good sign. But I'm in the same boat as you. I do not expect to see them unless Stratton is hurt, which let's hope not. I mean, Iowa doesn't need any more quarterback injuries. Or if Stratton is just like struggling, just massively, like if he throws like two or three interceptions or fumbles or something and just, can't hold on to the ball, I think Iowa would obviously have to turn to somebody else then. But yeah, I really think this is going to be Stratton on Friday. That's the way it sounded from Ferentz yesterday. You guys talked about Stratton on Saturday after the Maryland game, and I was there. I covered it. Not a splashy game, obviously, like 76 yards passing, but he did not make mistakes. He did not turn the ball over. Did not. He had one sack. Wasn't really a bad sack. Um, did not put the ball in places where it was dangerous. It wasn't a thing where it's like, oh, he should have given up a fumble here, or he should have had a pick there. It's like he took care of the ball. He kept the chains moving. It was a solid performance. So, I was going to want that from him again on Friday.
Now, in that same vein, Nebraska's pass defense is not Maryland's pass defense. Maryland's
Yeah,
pass defense is not good. Do you know where
yeah.
Nebraska ranks in the Big Ten?
There is one of those middle of the pack stats. I think it was not. They're not like top five, but they're not bottom five either. So
Sure. So, well, it'll be more of a test for
yeah,
Stratton. Uh, he shared that he'd never played, obviously minimal snaps against opponents at Colorado State. He was only 4 of 17 for a touchdown and 2 picks with the Rams, but this was his first competition against Power Four teams with UCLA and Maryland. So this will be a step up in terms of the competition, I think, and it'll be like we know, like we've said, going to be cold as hell. So that's
yeah.
that's going to be a different component that he'll have to deal with, but. We'll see, man. I mean, I think we saw the arm talent. I think we saw some really encouraging things from him. And if he can keep that going, Iowa could be in good shape. Of course, we'll give our score predictions here shortly, but um, yeah, I mean, I do think that Iowa is in better hands with Jackson Stratton fully healthy than a partially still recovering Brennan Sullivan or Cade McNamara. So that's got to be encouraging for Iowa. And man, it's honestly it's kind of hard not to root for the guy, right? Being a walk on,
Oh
being
yeah,
being a guy that was He had his scholarship pulled by Washington 3 or 4 days before signing day. And he's just a nice dude. I mean, I talked to him this summer when he made the decision, and I liked him then, and just getting to continue to know him. Mason Richmond referred to him as kind of a team, and I quote, team celebrity right now. Just because of his look, being called Shaggy and embracing it, and also just doing what he's done so far. And Mason also said that Jackson has kind of carved up the second and third team defenses when he was playing against them in camp and in practice and stuff like that. So the defense has really rallied around him too. So it's a I'm sure Kirk is kind of over having fun stories like that, right?
Yeah.
So we'll see how it shakes out for Jackson, but that's definitely something to be watching, seeing how he plays on Friday against the Cornhuskers. So let's get to our keys, Ross. I think the number one thing has to be Caleb Johnson in the run game getting going, not only for Stratton, but just period for the offense, especially given that it's a game that is going to be so cold. Nebraska has the 21st ranked run defense in the country. I mean, if Caleb can't get going, if Jazz can't get going, which Kamari and Jazz are both from Florida, so might be a little bit of a shock for them. Jazz maybe not so much, considering he's been around a little bit longer. But I think that has to be your number one thing for the offense is can you get pushed like you did against Maryland? Jennings Dunker probably not going to play, but Nick DeYoung probably had his best game as a Hawkeye um,
Yeah.
against Maryland at right tackle. Can you replicate that type of performance by the offensive line where they know you're going to run, Iowa knows they're going to run, and you get it done anyway?
Yeah. I mean, that running game is the engine of this offense. So they need to run the ball if they're going to have success. And yeah, that starts with the line. And then, they've still got three good, healthy backs behind it, which is great. You've got Johnson, you got Caleb that can pound away. And then, we saw Kamari come in as a, change of pace kind of against Maryland. And he was excellent. He had busted off that 68-yard touchdown run.
And we saw a little bit of TJ Washington in there too, just sprinkle,
Yep.
not a ton. But if
Yep.
you can really go to Leicester and do some creative things on the ground with a guy like TJ Washington too, or Caden Weegan or Seth Anderson, and make something happen, make them have to account for something else,
Yep.
that's going to be a positive. Also, Jackson said in media availability yesterday, he's like, man, there were a couple times where I should have pulled it and taken it myself. So if he shows some ability to run on the ground and some confidence to pull that ball, I think that's going to be a really good thing for the Iowa offense. And before you interject there, Ross, I think Jackson's shown the ability to be a quick learner, right?
Hmm.
And I think that confidence comes from not only his high school performance, stuff like that, but Tim Lester too, and his belief in him.
Yeah, absolutely. I think he's picked things up really quickly over the last, 2, 3 weeks, which has been great to see for the Hawkeyes. I was just going to interject about Stratton running. I wonder if last week he was under pretty strict orders to, don't take off and run too much because like Iowa cannot afford, any sort of quarterback injury in that game. If they think the depth is a little bit better this week, maybe they're a little bit more willing to let him, take those runs. But yeah, we'll see. But yeah, there's definitely opportunities because he does have, he's not a Sullivan runner, I don't think, but he's got enough wheels. He can move around and get some yards.
I would say he's probably going to be a little bit more mobile than Cade, but
Yeah,
nothing Sullivan like. You're not going to put that type of expectation on him. So
no.
Brendan Sullivan is effectively Iowa's pick, considering their history of quarterback.
I mean, that's fair. Compared to the guys that have usually suited up at quarterback, yes, that is accurate.
Definitely. All right, what's your key here, Ross?
Well, my key also is Stratton. Yeah, so that's a good segue.
Coincidentally.
Yeah. It kind of comes back to what I just said a little bit ago about, he just needs to take care of the ball and keep the pressure off the running game. He's got to do enough to keep defenses honest. They can't let Nebraska just crowd the line of scrimmage or crowd the box. And, so make it so there's no running room for Caleb and the running backs. So he just needs to, hit the passes that are there. I thought on Saturday he did a really good job of like making the makeable plays. So just keep doing that. Avoid the interceptions, avoid any turnovers, and yeah, I think that's going to be the key. Just another steady performance that leaves the heavy lifting up to the running game. I think that would put Iowa in a position to win on Friday night.
These two things are definitely they coincide, right? Because if the run game gets going, that opens things up for Jackson. If Jackson can do something, spread the ball around, that'll really open things up for Caleb to move the ball. And this is going to be a situation where Iowa does probably a lot of, or tries to do a lot of what they did against Maryland, where they just hold on to the ball, hold on to the ball, hold on to the ball, run it down your throat, run it down your throat, convert third downs, stuff like that. And this time they'll actually have a crowd to play in front of. It's
Yeah,
like they did at College Park.
yeah,
And that crowd will be on their side. Another game that's sold out. Obviously, like I mentioned, Iowans are just bred to hate Nebraska, so that's going to be beneficial for Hawkeye fans too.
you know,
Go ahead.
the other like second key, I guess, if I can, because I'm just thinking about, this is senior day, so this
Yep.
is the last home game for, Iowa has a ton of the super seniors this year, so like it's a bunch of guys who, this is actually it for Jay Higgins. And as sad as it is, we will not see Jay Higgins suit up in Kinnick Stadium again after Friday night. And there are several guys in that same position as him. So, I do think there's going to be a lot of emotion, probably a lot of motivation for those guys because I think they're going to want to go out with, a really strong final performance.
And I was just going to add another key too. I mean, one name we haven't mentioned somehow, Dylan Raiola. How have we not talked about Dylan Raiola?
Yeah,
Five-star, one of he was either first or second in the class of 2024 on Rivals. I can't remember right now. I think he was first, but
I think so.
has completed 231 of 348 passes for 2,405 yards, 12 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. We know he's got a cannon. We know he can launch it. We know, I mean, like the talent is obvious, right? Like he wants to be Pat Mahomes reincarnate, right? That's
Yeah,
definitely. I mean, if you know anything about Dylan Raiola, it's that. And you can see it, right? He's one of those guys where the ball pops off his arm, pops off like it's the difference between NFL and being a good college quarterback, right?
yeah,
He can read a defense. But that was the thing I was going to reference is just a few weeks ago, his stats comparative to a zone defense versus man zone, it was really bad. I don't know how it's evolved since then, but that's something that's definitely in Iowa's favor too. And of course, you would have preferred to play Raiola earlier in the season when he hasn't had a level of competition like he does now. But I think that's something that's going to be in Iowa's favor. If they can rattle him, if that zone can really start picking him apart, I mean, it may very well get ugly, right? I mean, like I don't
yeah.
think it's going to. I do think it's going to be a one-score game, but if Raiola can't do squat and the run game for Nebraska can't get going,
Yeah, yeah, definitely. What'd you say? You had 10 picks?
yep.
Yeah, I mean, and Iowa's got 16 picks on the season as a defense. So, the ball hawks are not quite back to their peak from a few years ago, but they've been good. And yeah, I think if Raiola can get flustered, make some mistakes, they'll be there to take the ball away, and that would be, obviously really huge for Iowa's offense to get some short fields to work with.
And speaking of the run game as well, Nebraska ranks 100th in rushing offense this season, 129.4 yards per game. But, we said some of the same things about the UCLA run game, so we'll see how it shakes out for the
Yes.
Hawks. But let's get into those final score predictions, Ross. What are you thinking for this one?
Yeah, so I'm gonna go with Iowa 24, Nebraska 17. So that keeps it as a one score game. And I just think Iowa, like there's a lot of intangibles I think going their way. It's at home, it's senior night. Just gonna have a lot of motivation, I think. And I was encouraged by the way Stratton played against Maryland. He's gonna be the quarterback on Friday. I I'm almost positive, and that would have been a scary thought a few weeks ago, but based on what I saw against Maryland, I think he can handle the job. He can take care of the ball. He can keep things moving along, keep Iowa ahead of schedule on offense. And I think Caleb is gonna, have another 100-yard game and get in the end zone again.
I am going to take the Hawkeyes as well and make it. Oh, I was thinking 17-14, but then I was like, nah, it's not last year. You know, um, what I will say is make it a little bit closer. Oh, gosh. I'll say 23-20 Iowa. They take the win. Drew Stevens field goal wins it. How's that?
All right.
Caleb Johnson, I think, is able to get going, and Dylan Raiola does enough to keep Iowa in it with that cannon of an arm. So we will wrap it up here. We appreciate you tuning in to this short, sickly episode of HawkCast on this Wednesday before Thanksgiving. Make sure that you hit that subscribe button, drop a like, drop a comment. Let us know what your score prediction is for this one. Who takes it in Kinnick Stadium on Black Friday? Also, again, stay tuned for that promo code. Once that drops, I'll put that in the description. So if you're listening on Thursday night, Friday morning, and you want to check that out down there, go ahead and click that and get signed up with us today. We'd love to have you. Also, if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, that link will be there too. All the links I talk about being in the description, always there on both platforms. So check that out there. And if you're listening there as well on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, leave that rate and review. Hit subscribe so you don't miss an episode. And we appreciate you doing that. Again, it does really help us out a lot, really gets the algorithm going for us. And of course, it's an opportunity for you to talk about your Hawks with your friends and family while you're listening to HawkCast. So again, folks, I am Eliot Clough at Eliot Clough on Twitter, joined by managing editor Ross Binder. For now, we will see you next time.